This is Nick from First Coast Math Clinic, and this video is on how to factor polynomials. In this video, we're going to go through these 6 examples, which consist of examples 1 through 3, which are binomials, example 4, which is a trinomial, and examples 5 and 6, which are polynomials, and examples 4 through 6 in particular are going to get us ready for the next video, which is on factoring trinomials. So if you just started factoring polynomials, I recommend reviewing this video, going through this video. Also, some introductory topics include introductions to polynomials and greatest common factor, and links for those topics will be appearing right now, so you can check out those videos as well. All right, let's get into examples 1 and 2 on how to factor polynomials. So for examples 1 and 2, we've got 2 binomials. So those are polynomials with 2 terms, and we want to factor them. So to factor our polynomials, we have to find our GCF, our greatest common factors. So let's start with number 1. We've got 6x minus 18, and let's factor this out. So 6 and x, I could just factor that into 6 times x, and then 18, I could factor that into 6 times 3. So my GCF, my greatest common factor here, is going to be 6 and 6. So that's going to be the greatest common factor, and that's the factor that I can pull out of each of these terms. So I can pull out that 6 and that 6. So I'm going to pull that 6 in front, outside of the binomial, and I'm going to keep the remaining terms, the x minus 3. So inside my parentheses is going to be x minus 3. So if you think about the distributive property, we're basically doing the reverse of the distributive property. We're pulling out the greatest common factor. We're getting 6 times x minus 3. Now, if I were to distribute that 6 back in, I would get 6x minus 18, our original binomial here. For number 2, let's factor this out and find our GCF. So 10 we could factor into 5 times 2, and then this is going to be y to the third. So it's y times y times y. And then 25 we know is 5 times 5, and then y squared is y times y. So what's our GCF? What's our greatest common factor? Well, if we look at our numbers, we've got a 5 and a 5 here. And what about our variables? Well, we've got 2 y's and 2 y's. So our GCF here is going to be 5 times y. Let me spread that out a little bit more. I'm going to write this out completely. 5 times y, which is 5y squared. So we're going to pull that 5y squared out. And everything that's left is going to stay in the parentheses. So we've got 2y minus 5. So factoring this second binomial, we've got 5y squared times 2y minus 5. All right, let's get into example number 3. So for number 3, we've got 5x squared times y squared plus 30x to the third y. So again, we want to find the GCF, our greatest common factor. So let's break this up. Here we have 5 times x times y plus 30. So we can break that up into 5 times 6 times x to the third. So x times x times x times y. So our GCF, looking at just our numbers, right, we've got a 5 and a 5. Looking at our variables, right, we've got x and x, so 2 x's, and a y and a y. So our GCF is going to be 5 times x times x times y. So it's going to be 5x squared y. So 5x squared y. And then in the parentheses is whatever's left. So here we've got y plus 6x. So y plus 6x x. All right, let's look at example number 4. Okay, so for number 4, we've got 45x to the third minus 30x squared minus 15x. So again, we want to find our GCF. So let's start breaking this apart. So 45, we could break that up into maybe 15 times 3, and then x to the third. So it's going to be x times x minus 30. So that's 15 times 2 times x. And then we have just 15 here, so we notice we've got 15 and 15 already, so we'll just keep that 15 times x. So our GCF, we've got 15, 15, and 15. And then our variables, we've got x, x, and x. So looks like our GCF is going to be 15x, so we can pull that out. And everything else is going to remain inside the parentheses. So we've got 3x times x minus 2x, and then just minus, well, we've pulled both the 15 and the x out. So what do we have left here? If we're going to factor the 15 and the x out, we're left with just a 1. Okay, so this is going to be 3x squared minus 2x minus 1. So our answer here for number 4, when we factor this, 15x times 3x squared minus 2x minus 1. All right, let's get into numbers 5 and 6. Number 5 is x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6. And this looks a little bit different than the previous 4 examples in that there's no one GCF that we can pull from each one of these 4 terms, right? So I've got x squared, 3x, 2x, and 6. There's no one common term, common greatest common factor that I could pull from each one of these 4 terms. So I need to factor this a little bit differently. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to break this up into a pair of binomials and draw some parentheses around the first pair of terms and the second pair of terms. So here I've got x squared plus 3x, and then 2x plus 6, and I'm going to factor each one of these independently. So x squared plus 3x, I know that is x times x plus 3 times x, and then I'm going to include the sign here, so this is going to be 2 times x plus 2 times 3, so 6 is 2 times 3. So let's find our GCF for each of these binomials independently. So in this first binomial, we've got an x and an x. So I can pull out that x, and I'm going to keep the x plus 3. So the x comes out first, and then x plus 3 stays in the parentheses. In the second set of parentheses, the second binomial, I got a positive 2, positive 2. So I'm going to pull that out of the parentheses. That's my GCF. And the x plus 3, that's going to stay in the parentheses. So I'm going to pull out a plus 2. So I'm going to keep the sign with the 2. And then x plus 3 stays in the parentheses. And what you should notice is that the quantity in the parentheses, x plus 3, and x plus 3 is the same. So we're going to get the same value in our parentheses here and here, x plus 3, x plus 3. Now, all we have to do is regroup the quantity outside of our parentheses, x plus 2. So I can write this as x plus 2. I'll put that in parentheses, and then just group the x plus 3 together, so x plus 3, and that's my answer. So I've grouped the x plus 2 together, and the x plus 3, and when I factor x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6, we get x plus 2 times x plus 3. Now I'm showing you guys this in particular because when we get into factoring trinomials, we're going to use this method because I think this is one of the more straightforward ways or methods to factor trinomials. Okay. All right, let's do one more example of factoring polynomials by using this method. All right, so for number 6, we've got x squared plus 4x minus 5x minus 20. So we're going to start this the same way we started number 5. We're going to break it up into a pair of binomials, parentheses around the first two terms and last two terms. And I want to find the GCF in each of these terms, each of these binomials. So we can break this up. I know x squared is x times x plus 4 times x. And then this is going to be, I can make this into negative 5 times x, and then negative or minus 5 times 4. So let's identify our GCF now. So from our first set of parentheses, we've got an x and an x. So that's our GCF in the first set of parentheses. That's the term they have in common. And then we've got an x plus 4. All right, so we've got x, and then in parentheses, x plus 4. So that's our x, and then x plus 4. Now from example number 5, we should remember that whatever we got here, we should get here, right? So we know that this value should be x plus 4 as well. Okay, well, where do we see an x plus 4? Well, we see an x here, and we've got a positive 4 here. This minus sign is on the 5, so that minus 5 and minus 5, that's going to be our GCF, and we're going to put that right here. We're going to factor that out. So we'll pull out the minus 5. Now we can group these two together. So we'll have x minus 5, and then x plus 4. And that's our factored x squared plus 4x minus 5x minus 20. All right, so this video was on how to factor polynomials. I hope these videos are helping you guys. If you like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out the link for the video that's going to appear at the end of this video. It's going to be on how to factor trinomials. Check that video out. Again, this was Nick from First Coast Math Clinic.